Our first question is from Brandon, and Brandon's question is a bit of a journey, a little odyssey, but the question is good. A friend of mine recently had hip surgery. I would have liked to have known what kind. He's in his early 40s, in good shape overall, runs and exercises regularly, played collegiate baseball, not overweight. I believe the surgery repaired a torn ligament or tendon. Oh, sorry. It wasn't a full replacement. He's about 6 months post-op. 6 months after my total hip replacement, I was the only person to flip the caber at the Highland Games. So you can do a lot of things after a THR. Of all the replacement surgeries, it's the one that, as I understand it from my orthopedic surgeon, has the highest rate of success. And it's really, if you have hip issues and you limp 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's a miracle. So here we go. He recently joined a functional fitness style gym similar to the program that shall not be named. This week he said he was doing box jumps after a hip surgery. I honestly couldn't believe it, and nor can I, Brandon. Isn't this a huge risk for marginal benefit? You know, I never like to, since I'm not at the gym, I didn't see what's going on, I didn't see the prep. I don't like to usually make comments, but Brandon, I'm seeing this all the time. You're just having people do things that probably won't help long. The cost of benefit, the risk to the reward, the rate of return, whatever we want to talk about it, just isn't there. Don't get me wrong, Brandon continues. I'm really glad that he's doing well and he's able to do box jumps without being injured. The problem with injuries in training and competition is you never know when the injury is going to come, because they tend to be, the old word was acute, where just boom. It's like getting hit by a car. You're having a great day and then you got T-boned and the rest of your life you suffer. I'm just concerned that it could do more harm than good. Why do gyms have average people doing high-risk exercises like this? Do movements like this make our bodies more robust and injury resistant? What exercises would you recommend to someone who wants the benefits of box jumps, but with a lower risk of injury? A lot of questions here, Brandon. I'll do my best to maybe make a box and see if I can summarize them all. First off, your friend is between 36 and 55, and that's a range where I think is very important. Now, if you know my work, I break age down into 4 parts, like up to 16 or 17, and then up to about 35 is the next range, then 36 to 55 and 55 and above. I finally took my own advice as a person well above 55 now, sneaking up on 70. Wow, that happened fast. I've been telling people for years to mix bodybuilding with joint mobility exercises. So I'll do something like an incline press followed by an original strength movement. And then lots of walking and caloric intervention. And by that, I mean, after 56, you got to make sure you're getting certain nutrients, but you're not just adding body fat. So that's why I think after 56, it's so important to really have a real tight fist on your protein intake. Probably keep an eye on total calories. I like to be in about 100 calorie deficit. Though I also allow me, I don't want to I have a funny name for it. It's a little offensive, but I have 500 calories a day that I just call F up calories, because, I think I don't measure butter when I'm making my eggs. And so there's some extra calories I didn't see. And I don't really measure out exactly how much, cottage cheese I put on the plate. I know that this much, what the brand I use is 110 calories, but, I measure it, a couple times and I eyeball it after that. So if it's too much, I've got them built in. So I bodybuild 3 days a week. I do original strength movements between each and every set. And then after that, I go for a walk and I strive for 10,000 steps every day. After I do my workouts, I eat my very fixed breakfast, and then I have a reasonable dinner and a snack or two. And and a dessert, and actually Pinot Noir too. That fits into my calories. From 36 to 55, this is the time of life where I think this is the biggest investment you can make. Now, I think from birth to 16, you're making big investments that you don't even know you're making. I've been noticing lately, because we did this in my financial intentional community, I didn't realize the impact of taking that typing class in the 9th grade. I can type about as fast as I can talk. In fact, I probably actually type better than I talk. But I didn't realize the long-term financial impact of that typing class. You know, as a child, I learned the great books. I learned how to discuss. I learned the basics of logic. When I was about 8 or 9, my brothers came home with a weightlifting set, and I fell in love with weightlifting in 1965 is when I started lifting. I had no idea that the great books and the weightlifting and the typing would lead me to my career today. So even up to 16, you're making these massive financial and physical benefits that are going to be around the rest of your life. From 16, 17 to 35, this is a good time to do the knots. And the knots would be, to quote Art Devaney, don't get fat in the first place. If you can, from age 17 to 35, remain lean. I'm very proud that I'm at my freshman. The weight I threw the discus as a freshman. As we sit here right now, I'm 202, and that's what I weighed as a freshman in college. I was small, but I was fast. And I think it's important that, and the other side of things too is be as debt-free as you can in those years. I mean, obviously there's good debt, but stay lean, take care of business, establish your foundations, establish your family, establish your career, whatever you decide to do, take care of business. 36 to 55, where your friend is extremely important, because a lot of people notice when you get to all of a sudden, all that hard work you put in the first 35 years of your life starts to pay off. Here in the United States might be different than the other countries, so just bear with me, but this is where you probably are either if you work for somebody else, you've probably climbed the ladder high enough so that you can go on vacations with the family. You can afford that second car. You can, all of a sudden, you're not so strained and pulled apart. Your investments that you're making now for your future in finance are really important, but there's a more important investment between 36 and 55. And that's what I call everyday strength. So what's everyday strength? If you're lifting weights, and the research has been clear on this, it's from this book here, The Physiology of Strength by Theodore Heidinger, which was written before I was born, translated into English in 1961, is that I saw something interesting in the book that really didn't make sense the first time I read it in high school. But there's this idea that if you lift weights, you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and then it plateaus. If you stop lifting weights when you start to plateau and take 6 months away, the next time you start lifting weights, you'll get up to those plateau numbers really fast. Take another 6 months off, and you get up to those numbers even faster. Take another 6 months off, and you even faster. But what I want people to think about is, what are those numbers, 2, 3, 5, 6 workouts after you took 6 months or a year and a half off? To me, that's what everyday strength is. Maybe you peak up for a little friendly competition with your buddy to bench 315, and then your job changes. You don't lift weights for 6 months. Your 5th workout back, you bench press 245. To me, that's that everyday strength. So the number one thing I want to get across to you, Brandon, is between the ages of 36 and 55, is get those everyday strength numbers up. Now, it's also really important that if you have injured yourself in auto accidents, bike accidents, sports, games, being stupid, between 36 and 55 is a great chance for you to do the mobility work, the flexibility work, the rehab work to get those joints feeling well. You know, if you broke a wrist like I did, for example, you have plenty of time to do all that rehab day in, day out for years, so it comes back completely normal. I've mentioned this in the podcast before. For those of you just listening, I'm bending my wrist back. My doctor was convinced I'd never be able to do that again with the 2 wrist surgeries I had. Well, he was right. If I'd have been a normal client, I wouldn't have kept going after it. But I wanted to lift weights again, and I wanted to be back on the platform. So 36 to 55, you are making the biggest strength and mobility investments of your life. That's the time you should be focusing on. And it's sad because, you know, you got a guy in his early 40s here already getting surgeries on the hips. And I'm not critiquing, but I'm just saying, but he needs to work on the mobility and all that muscular structure of that part of his body. Once you hit this age, you want to get as strong as you can, but you want to get there as smart as you can. Okay, so there's a couple things. Let's answer the questions one after another here. Why do gyms have average people doing high-risk exercises like this? I think because it looks sexy and it sells. If you're working with a group of men between the ages of 70 and 80, having them do leg extension, military press, leg extension machine, military press machine, and lat pull-down machine for 3 sets of 10 has an incredible transformative change to their bodies. But showing videos on social media of me doing leg extension isn't going to get you 1,000 likes. Now, if I was a lot prettier and I was wearing something slinky, maybe it'd get more likes. You know, doing these exercises where people, when they work so hard and they lay on the ground and they leave a sweat stain on the gym floor, people like that. People like that. But does it really lead itself to long-term health? But it sells, man. It sells. I mean, I'll look online at people doing these kettlebell variations. There's this one person, I don't want to mention anybody, but the person can't do an actual kettlebell snatch correctly, nor a swing, but they'll do all these bizarre combinations of things with really light bells, in my opinion. And it's like, why are you doing all the goofy stuff when you can't do the fundamentals correct? Do movements like this make our bodies more robust and injury resilient? In my experience, I banned box jumps out of my gym a long time ago. First off, we had wooden ones, and we kept getting that shin bone scrape, which is really hard. I mean, a high school girl with a permanent scar on her shin, that's something she doesn't want. But then we also noticed that we were getting some real strange injuries, and you just don't want that. What makes you robust and injury resistant is having that, and I'm going to use the yin-yang example, probably overdone, but you want your strength and your mobility. Mobility, in my definition, is the free range of movement around a joint. If you're strong and you have as best joint mobility as you can have with the DNA that you have and your life story, that's going to make you injury resilient. What makes me injury resilient around the house, one thing, I do a lot of original strength, and I play with my grandchildren on the floor. So I do spend a lot of time on the floor. What makes me injury resilient is when I go in to take a shower, I always put my hand on the wall when I step in, and I always try to have the hand on the wall and 1 foot of contact on the ground at all the times. What makes me injury resilient is I wear a helmet when I ride my bike, and I put on a seatbelt when I drive my car. And I always look one extra time over my left shoulder before I go out into an intersection or take a right turn, because statistically, most people get T-boned from the driver's side. That's what makes you injury resilient. I avoid things that I think might hurt me if I'm not good at. When I was younger, I used to really cross-country ski a lot. I used to do downhill with cross-country skis. Well, I don't do it anymore because I have titanium hips. So even though I like doing that, I don't want to have to replace a total hip replacement hip. injury resilience to me is, as I say in my upcoming book, I mean, don't ever say, hold my beer and watch this. That's where the injuries happen. You've got to be, a little bit of foresight is the best injury prevention you can have. And then this last question is one I want to take. What exercise would you recommend to someone who wants the benefit of box jumps, but with a lower risk of injury? Well, the lowest risk of injury I can think of to replace box jumps, I would say, is the hip thrust. The hip thrust is a very, very safe option for that explosive hinge movement. Of course, the kettlebell swing is going to be in there, but from what I'm watching online and the gyms I visit, it's funny, I almost can't even recommend kettlebell swings anymore because there are so many disastrous coaches teaching disastrous technique. And there's some things they're doing now, the dead hang swing techniques, this upright raise, the excessive leaning back, and the pure idiocy of some of the things I just can't. But the hip thrust is generally safe. I have a workout here on my podcast. It's called The Perfect Workout. And I've recommended it before, but it's very simple. It's 3 sets of 8 in the half kneeling press, left side, right side, and then hang, and a 30-second hang between every round, which is marvelous for the shoulders. That's followed by hip thrusts, Bulgarian goat bag swings. These are all available on my site. And then the goblet squat and the overhead squat. You do a goblet squat with 24 kilos, and then you just use a broomstick to stand, broomstick overhead squat. It'll make sense when you watch the video. And suitcase carries. For me, I think you get all the benefits of the box jump doing that without any of the dangers. Now, someone's going to say, well, that's crazy because what about explosiveness and spring? I like getting my spring by playing catch with the Frisbee and catch with the American football. I get my spring. Now, if you're going to do box jumps where you jump up and then slowly walk down, I get it. I could see someone with no issues doing that. But sometimes people, even though it looks great, it looks sexy, they're just not there. And then having said all that, a couple times a year, I step on the platform and I compete as an Olympic lifter. And for me, as dangerous as the snatch might look, it is a box jump of a sort. But unless you're a lunatic, very few people would do high rep actual snatches. Now you might remember that one contest they had online, how many snatches can you do with 85 pounds in 30 seconds? I thought to myself, why would you be using 85 pounds? But those are my recommendations, Brandon. I hope they help. The phrase functional fitness has come and gone probably since the millennia, probably 85 times, about every 2 months, it's the new thing, and then it becomes the worst thing, then the new thing. But what is functional? I'm a grandfather who has infants, and for me, being a functional grandpa is driving my older grandchildren to the bookstore, walking around the mall, having coffee with them, playing chess with them, hanging out with them. With my little grandchildren, functional is me getting down the ground and playing with them while they're learning to crawl and roll. What does functional mean? It means whatever you want today. I hope that answered the question. It's a great question. And I hope I wasn't too negative on this, on the trainers at this gym, but just be careful. All right, thank you.